In the 21st century, the battle over information has become a key part of war. A textbook example of this is the brutal war that Israel has waged on Gaza since October 2023. The Western media has spread many misleading narratives echoing lies and disinformation spread by the Israeli government. And this information war has been used to justify war crimes and crimes against humanity. This January, the International Court of Justice at The Hague ruled that there is sufficient evidence to investigate Israel on charges of genocide against the Palestinian people. But to try to justify these crimes against humanity, the Israeli government has spread the extremely misleading claim that the death toll in Gaza cannot be trusted because it's supposedly unreliable. This is completely false. There have been numerous scientific peer-reviewed studies published by leading experts in the medical journal The Lancet showing that the Gaza death toll reported by the Palestinian Health Ministry is accurate in this current war and has been accurate in previous wars. I made a separate video about that, which I will link to in the description below. As of the 1st of February, Israel has killed more than 27,000 Palestinians, and the vast majority of the victims have been civilians, including more than 2/3 have been women and children. This is according to the Palestinian Health Ministry's data, and as I'll show today, this data is accurate. However, that has not stopped US President Joe Biden from repeating this blatantly false disinformation spread by the Israeli government.
I have no notion that the Palestinians are telling the truth about how many people are killed. I'm sure innocents have been killed, and it's the price of waging a war. I think we should be incredibly careful. I think not we, the Israelis should be incredibly careful to be sure that they're focusing on going after the folks that are propagating this war against Israel. And it's against their interest when that doesn't happen. But I have no confidence in the number that the Palestinians are using.
Now, today I'm going to review the latest evidence, which shows how just ridiculous this narrative is that has been spread by the Israeli and the US governments. And that is the revelation that the Israeli government itself uses the Palestinian Health Ministry's own data in Gaza in order to know what the death toll is, and Israeli intelligence agents, Israeli spies, have admitted that the Palestinian Health Ministry's data is accurate. So they know, the Israeli government knows that this death toll is accurate, but for political reasons, Israeli officials go out in the media and they try to muddy the water and falsely claim that the death toll was fabricated by the Palestinian militant group Hamas, and they claim that it's all fake and you cannot trust any of the data. That is completely absurd. The fact that the Israeli government itself uses the data shows that they are simply lying to try to justify their crimes against humanity. How do we know this? Well, a local media outlet in Israel called Sicha Mekomit published an article revealing this. Now, the report is in Hebrew, so I'm simply going to use the auto-translate into English, just so you know this is a machine translation. But it notes that the Israeli army investigated and found that the reports of the dead of the Ministry of Health in Gaza are reliable. Intelligence sources told this Israeli journalist, Yuval Avraham, that the death toll is accurate and that the Israeli military itself uses the Palestinian Health Ministry's data in its own internal reports. Now, this story was ignored by the vast majority of the Western media. It only got coverage in a few small sites, but one of the news outlets that did cover it was Vice. Vice News published a follow-up report titled Israeli intelligence has deemed Hamas-run health ministries' death toll figures generally accurate. And they not only re-reported what this Israeli newspaper reported, but they also did some of their own reporting over at Vice News. I'm going to go through some of the main points here because they show how it's nonsense when Israeli officials try to deny the death toll that show that the vast majority of Palestinians in Gaza who have been killed have been civilians, and in particular women and children. Now, Vice News spoke with an anonymous Israeli intelligence official who confirmed that the Israeli government uses the Gaza Ministry data and that the numbers were accepted for inclusion in briefings for senior Israeli officials. And also, 2 officials from European intelligence agencies from NATO members likewise said that the Palestinian Health Ministry's data is used in official briefings internationally. Now, the anonymous Israeli intelligence official told Vice News that in the current war that Israel is waging, in which Israel has destroyed most of Gaza's infrastructure and displaced about 2/3 of its population, the rules of engagement for the IDF's artillery and airborne assets have been loosened, and they said that the secret services in Israel looked at the Gaza Health Ministry's collection methods and determined the numbers were generally credible. And therefore, the Israeli government decided to use Hamas's numbers. And they say Hamas, but it's the Palestinian Health Ministry. It's not just Hamas. It's run by Palestinian health officials. And they note this Israeli official admitted that the Palestinian Health Ministry is generally transparent and credible with civilian deaths. However, he noted that they simply do not report the deaths of Hamas fighters. And strategically, this makes sense because if Hamas released the data about all of its fighters who have been killed, that could help Israel in its planning for this war on Gaza. So the point is that an Israeli intelligence official is acknowledging that the Gaza Health Ministry's reports on civilians killed in Gaza are accurate. That is to say, its report saying that over 2/3 of the Palestinians killed in Gaza have been women and children. Those are accurate, according to Israeli spies. Now, furthermore, this Vice News report notes that the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, UN OSHA, also uses this data in its reports. And Vice News spoke with 2 intelligence officials from European NATO members, and they also said that the civilian casualty numbers released by the ministry in Gaza were accurate enough to be widely used in intelligence briefings throughout NATO. They said, Europe plays a major funding role in the Gaza health system, so we have visibility into these operations, said one of the officials, and therefore the data is accurate. This intelligence official said that the true casualties are higher than any health ministry figures because there are uncovered bodies. Half the Gaza Strip has been flattened by Israel's airstrikes, and there are more dead under the rubble. So this is confirming that, if anything, not only is the Palestinian Health Ministry data accurate, it actually undercounts the number of dead, the tens of thousands of Palestinians who have been killed by Israel. And furthermore, one of the NATO intelligence officials said, I'd be shocked if the Americans were not using the same data in all of their briefings as well. And other reporting shows that this is exactly the case. The Huffington Post published a report back in October noting that despite the fact that President Biden tried to downplay the Palestinian death toll in Gaza, claiming that they can't be trusted, in reality, the U.S. government itself, the State Department, uses the death toll of the Palestinian Health Ministry inside its own intelligence briefings. And this article in Huffington Post noted, as of October, the 26th of October of 2023, in at least 12 instances, U.S. embassy officials attributed the number of Palestinian casualties to the Hamas-linked health ministry in Gaza, including in the report provided to State Department colleagues on the 25th of October, hours before Biden made his ridiculous comments downplaying the Palestinian death toll and trying to cast it into doubt. And this Huffington Post report cited a document, a cable, in which a U.S. official wrote that, quote, the numbers are likely much higher, according to the UN and NGOs reporting on the situation. So not only does the U.S. government use the Gaza Health Ministry's death toll, but they also admit that it's a conservative estimate, and the actual number of Palestinians killed by Israel is even higher. So all of this goes to show that the death toll, as of the 1st of February, that Israel has killed more than 27,000 Palestinians. Not only is this accurate, it's very likely a conservative estimate. And once again, more than 2/3 of the casualties of the victims have been women and children. And the latest figures are exactly 27,019 Palestinians and who have been killed by Israel, and 66,139 Palestinians who have been wounded. And ABC News published an article, it was a newswire by the Associated Press, that noted that South Africa's foreign minister has accused Israel of ignoring the ruling by the United Nations top court, the International Court of Justice, which ordered Israel to do all it can to prevent deaths in Gaza. And the Associated Press noted that the number of deaths has grown by more than 1,100 since the International Court of Justice in The Hague told Israel to do its best to prevent acts of genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. So Israel is continuing this genocidal campaign that has the full support of the U.S. government, which is complicit in these crimes against humanity. And in a separate video, which I will link to in the description below, I went through some of the main points of this ruling by the International Court of Justice at The Hague. And the ICJ stated very clearly that Israel had to stop killing Palestinians. It had to stop causing serious bodily or mental harm to Palestinians, that Israel had to take immediate and effective measures to enable the provision of urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance to Palestinians in Gaza, that Israel had to take effective measures to prevent the destruction and ensure the preservation of evidence related to Israel's crimes. So Israel is blatantly violating this ruling from the International Court of Justice at The Hague, from the maximum senior legal authority of the United Nations. These are blatant contraventions of international law, and they show that Israel is a rogue state. So when you see ridiculous Western media propaganda trying to downplay the fact that with U.S. support, Israel is killing tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians in a blatant act of ethnic cleansing that The Hague itself has said can constitute potential genocide, well, you now know you're equipped with the evidence, and you can respond to them and say that this is ridiculous. You are simply trying to make excuses for crimes against humanity. On that note, I'm going to conclude here. I'm Ben Norton. This is Geopolitical Economy Report. I want to thank everyone for joining me today. Please like and subscribe if you're watching the video on YouTube. And if you prefer listening to this, you can check out the Geopolitical Economy Report podcast. Once again, I'm Ben Norton, the editor of Geopolitical Economy Report. I want to thank you all for joining me. I will see you next time.